only got 5 minutes, so we're going to go as fast as possible. If you can get your Bible, you're going to go to two separate places in your Bible. Jonah chapter 1 and Acts chapter 8. Jonah chapter 1 and Acts chapter 8. Talk a little bit of fast because we got to get through this as fast as possible. This is called He Was a Soul Winner. He was a soul winner. Real quick, starting in Acts chapter 8, verse 26. It's a pretty familiar story. Philip gets called by the Lord to go and to speak to someone about him. And it says, "And the angel of the Lord spake unto Philip, saying, Arise and go toward the south unto the way that goeth down from Jerusalem unto Gaza, which is a desert." So God calls Philip at this point in time to go. Go back to Jonah chapter 1. So you're going to hold this place right here. Jonah chapter 1. "Now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness has come up before me." Both of these men were called to do something specific, to go to a certain person, to go to a certain place, and to speak to a certain person. Now, with this fact, just to put this flat out for everybody in this room, everybody in this room is called to go to somebody, somewhere, something, someplace, at some time. The only trick about it is I'm not the one to tell you where it is. Neither is the person probably sitting next to you. Only God is the one who can tell you where you're supposed to go and who you're supposed to talk to and where you're supposed to be. And, of course, God speaking through the pastor, of course, like that, and things like that. Both of these men were called, and God said, go. Acts chapter 8, verse 27. Acts chapter 8, verse 27. So we're going to go back and forth between this. "And he arose," being Philip, "he arose and went, and behold, a man of Ethiopia, an eunuch of great authority under Candace, queen of the Ethiopians, who had a charge of all her treasures, and had come to Jerusalem for to worship, was returning and sitting in his chariot, and he read Isaiah the prophet." So he was called to go. And not only when he got there, he met somebody while he was there, sitting in a chariot and reading. Let's go back to Jonah. And he went also, which is another part about this. Jonah chapter 1, verse 3. Now remember, Jonah was called too. "But Jonah rose up and fled unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord, and went down to Joppa, and he found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare thereof, and went down into it to go with them unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord." So now we have two individuals here. We have two separate individuals. Both people were called to go to a specific place. Both people were spoken to by God to go and do something amazing for his work. But there were two separate answers to the same question or command. One said, "I'll go." The other said, "No, it's not what I'm doing." Acts chapter 29, verse 31. Acts chapter 29, verse 31. Talking about Philip again. Acts chapter 29, verse 31. Yeah. Acts chapter 8, verse 29. Forgive me. Acts chapter 8, verse 29 through 31. "Then the Spirit said unto Philip, Go near and join thyself to this chariot. And Philip ran thither to him and heard him read the prophet Isaiah, and said unto him, Understandest thou what thou readest? And he said, How can I, except some man should guide me? And he desired Philip that he would come up and sit with him. So one obeyed, and then he also got to hear the Spirit speak directly to him. And he said, oh, hey, he needs to get saved. I got to talk to him. And then the man with welcoming arms, the best situation you could ever think of, said, hey, I happen to be reading the Bible right here, and I don't know what this means. Can you tell me what this means? Which every soul winner who goes out here would love that kind of situation to happen. Now let's look at the other situation. Jonah chapter 1, verse 4, verse 15 and 17. Let's look what happened to Jonah. Jonah chapter 1, verse 4. But the Lord sent out a great wind into the sea, and there was a mighty tempest in the sea, so that the ship was like to be broken. So God sent a storm to Jonah. Next, verse 15 says, So they took up Jonah and cast him forth into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging. So first, God sent a storm. Then he got thrown overboard. Last but not least, verse 17. Now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. So God sent a storm, men threw him overboard, and then a fish ate him because he said no. Very interesting circumstance. Both of them went out, but one was going the wrong way. One was blessed, and one was cursed. Now Acts chapter 8, verse 37 and 38. Acts chapter 8, verse 37 and 38. And Philip said, If thou believest with all thine heart that if thou believest with all thine heart, thou mayest. And he answered and said, I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God.
1 minute.
And he commanded the chariot to stand still. And they went down both into the water, both Philip and the eunuch, and he was baptized. One was saved. Acts chapter 3, verse 5. Or not Acts, Jonah chapter 3, verse 5 and 10. Jonah chapter 3, verse 5 and 10. So the people of Nineveh believed God and proclaimed a fast and put on sackcloth from the greatest of them even to the least of them. In verse 10, and God saw their works, that they turned from their evil ways, and God repented of the evil that he had said that he would do unto them, and he did it not. Now here's it. This is the finish of it. Both finished. If you did not know, Jonah ended up getting sent back to go to the people of Nineveh. And he ended up telling the people of Nineveh exactly what he was supposed to say. And in the end of it, both targets were saved. But the only difference between the two circumstances was not the people. Even really the circumstance that was said around it. Because both were called, meaning God's hand was upon it. But it was the person who was supposed to go and do the sowing was the difference between it. Now, I'm going to finish it with this story, and then I'm done. There was a lawyer and a friend. They were kids when they were younger, and they grew up together. And one of them, the friend, ended up becoming a pastor. Everybody's heard this story before, probably. The pastor ended up growing, and then they'd spread apart, and they were in their jobs and stuff like that. And then one day, the lawyer said, "Hey, I got some free time. Let's go and be friends together. Let's go on a fishing trip like we used to do when we were friends, and let's just go for a drive. We're going to have a great old time." The pastor said, "Yes, I'm going to make some time in my schedule. Maybe we can, it'll be a great time to hang out with my friend." So they got together, they met up, they hung out for a week straight. They did all the things that they used to do, that they used to love. They went fishing, they went hiking, they went all these wonderful things. And as on the last day they're driving home, they're sitting there and they're talking in the car and just laughing and talking about the good old days like they always do. And the lawyer said, "Can I ask you a question?" And his friend said, "Yeah, go ahead. You can ask me whatever you want. It's wonderful." And his friend said, or the lawyer said, "Do you believe in God?" And the pastor said, "Yes." Can we finish? No? No, it's just a story. I'm done after this. And the pastor's friend said, "Yes." And he says, "Okay, you believe in God." He says, "Do you believe that there's a hell?" He says, "Yes, I do." He says, "Do you believe that there's a heaven?" He says, "Yes, I do." He says, "No, you don't." And the pastor says, "What?" And the lawyer says, "You don't believe in any of that." He says, "Why?" He says, "I've been with you this entire trip. We hunted, we fished, we hiked, we did all these amazing things together. But not at one point in time, at any point in time, did you ever ask me if I was going to go to heaven? You have no clue if I'm even going to die today. You have no clue if I'm going to die tomorrow. And just by the standards of being a lawyer, all these proofs would go to the point that you don't believe in what you think. Otherwise, you would have told me, especially because you're my best friend." The pastor then said, "Huh." And they parted ways. Which one are you? Jonah or Philip?